Welcome, fight fans, again. TitleFight.com, Brandon Stubbs, Steve Gallegos, Gordie Tamayo. And we had an action-packed weekend of fights from top to bottom here. We want to go back a little ways here towards the earlier part of the day over to Macau, China, where we had Zhu Shiming, who's been kind of being built up as the next great thing into boxing that's going to be elevating the sport up and bringing along with it its billion-plus audience there from China. And a lot of hype going into this guy. I want to touch base real quick on this guy, Brent. I know you got a chance to touch base on him. Are you buying into all the hype of Shiming here and seeing how his performance was against Jesus Ortega yesterday? As him, being a guy that's going to be in the mix there in the flyweight division at least, or moving up and being able to capture some huge attention and a title down the road?
He'll definitely be able to do the latter. He'll be able to definitely grab attention and bring more eyes to the sport of boxing, especially over there in China. As far as being a player in the division, he gets hit far too much, and he doesn't seem to have much pop behind his punches. And if you're already seeing this against, the two guys they put him in there against, which are pretty much, I don't want to say, young clubs, fighters, people, kind of not really up to his skill level, and he still can't get them out, that's not a good sign.
I agree with you there. Who knows? I think he is being built up a little bit too much as far as the hype's concerned. But on the undercard, facing right before that fight, actually, had a chance to catch a couple of these bouts here with Juan Francisco Estrada versus Milan Melindo. In the 12-round fight for Estrada's WBO and WBA strap there. Steve, you got a chance to catch that as well. And pretty good chess match going on between these two who, down the road, one of these guys could be next in line to face Shiming there. What was your overall take on that bout?
That was a decent chess match. Both guys showed a lot of skill. Showed some pop. Estrada, you could tell he's got a great boxing pedigree. He's a great, boxer puncher. You don't see that, see too many fighters like him coming out of Mexico. He controlled the pace of that fight throughout most of the fights. In the early rounds, he did look a little tentative, but man, did that man close the show. I mean, he closed the show unlike anybody I've seen. He came out there and took the championship rounds, fought like a champion, made a statement. So, and also, he fought. There was another top fighter, an undefeated fighter that he did beat, and he continues to rack up wins against quality opponents. Hopefully, we'll see him in line for a big money fight on a big card here in the future.
Great, yeah, I really enjoyed actually watching this fight here and thinking of the possibility of one of these two actually stepping in to face a guy that has the big promotional pool and Shiming here. How would he face up to a guy like either one of these guys? I mean, Estrada and Melindo both actually carry some very heavy skill set. What would be your overall, perception of either one of these guys stepping in the ring with him? How would you see that playing out?
Well, I actually don't see Shiming standing a chance against either one of these fighters. These guys have a lot of professional, experience, inside the ring. Their styles are made for the professional ranks. Even though Shiming was a two-time Olympic champion, his style was more for the amateurs. I'm not so sure about how Shiming's style in the ring is going to fare against some of these top fighters. Basically what Brandon says, the way that he fights and the way that that he can't get some of these other lesser fighters out of there as he goes along. Who knows how he's going to fare against these top fighters, and then again, when will Shiming be ready to face that type of competition? They're going to have to bring Shiming along slowly. They can't bring him up too fast, and I don't see him reaching that elite level at all. I'm sorry to say it, but I just don't see it.
So maybe just good marketing on Top Rank's part and trying to draw in the huge, audience over from China. And even if it is short-lived, or being able to parlay that into some of the more mainstream, fighters that we're going to see, like Pacquiao when he takes on Rios. So maybe that's part of their strategy there behind it. And Shiming is kind of just being used as the ploy to draw in that audience, maybe. Moving across the world here, we had a crazy fight card Golden Boy Promotions and Showtime seem to have upped the ante here on this card with Knockout Kings 2. Kicking off the stretch here with a guy that's been on, Brandon, I know he's been on your radar for some time, and you called it to a T here with Keith One-Time Thurman taking on Diego Chaves. I'll be straight up and honest about this one. I honestly was picking Chaves to take Thurman on this one. I wasn't totally sold on him yet. But seeing last night's performance, I'm kind of singing a different tune on the guy now. Brandon, what was your overall thoughts on this particular matchup and how it ended?
One thing that Showtime commentator and boxer Paulie Malignaggi said that made all the sense in the world. He's like, Thurman finally fought someone who was in the ring, who was willing to win the fight. Mm-hmm. So he had somebody against him finally pushing him to a limit he hadn't been to before in his career, and that's when we kind of saw him rise to the occasion. He struggled at times. He took shots that he probably should have taken, never has taken, before in his career. Answered those back. Was able to make changes on the fly, especially the back half of the fight. And then he scored that wonderful body shot that it was just very crisp, just woof. Mm-hmm. And you could just tell it just knocked the air out of Chaves. Yeah. And take nothing away from Chaves. His stock also has to definitely go up, even in the loss, because he took on another undefeated fighter and hung in there as long as he could, and just one time just finally just started to apply the pressure. Went in, he closed the show, a great knockout win, and he was able to win the Knockout King bonus for the night of the 10 grand.
Right. No, it was a great performance by both of them. I agree with you 110% that I think both of their stock actually climbs up there. And, I was overtly happy to see that Thurman actually did face somebody that, like you said, wanted to win it as much as him, and he was able to pull it off and did so in such fashion. So what's next on the table? Post-fight, obviously, he maybe had few too many shots, like you said, and even got mixed up with where he was maybe located at in the States. He threw some of that out, but thought he was in San Diego, I think he said for a minute, right? But
yeah.
What's next on the table with him? He had to go out and say that even Floyd Mayweather has him on his radar, which may be stretching the truth a little bit there. But what kind of a matchup do we see this guy possibly coming up against next, Brandon? What do you think?
It's really going to be dependent upon what route the Golden Boy wants to take him at. If they want to still kind of maybe ease him along a little bit, maybe have him come off and fight a guy like Paulie Malignaggi, who doesn't pack much pop, but can box. And that would be, something different for one time to actually face and get that experience against fighting a true boxer. Mm-hmm. If they really want to take him to the next level, it's going to make all the sense in the world to either within the next year and a half, him and Broner are on a crash course. People need to realize it. It's going to happen. Those are going to be the two guys who are, the winner of that would be the future of the 147-pound division going forward upon Mayweather retiring.
Going on forward in that same card there, we had another bout that was just nuts. So, I had to go back on replay and play it this morning just to witness the action again today. But we had Omar Figueroa taking on Naito Arakawa, 12-round bout for a vacant WBC interim lightweight title, and what a lot of people were already buzzing around as a prospect for fight of the year already. And these guys were trading some crazy shots back and forth. Arakawa, man, got to give the guy credit. Both of them hung in there like true champs and just traded and, the utmost respect for one another after the fight there. Brandon, I seen you on there on Twitter just posting. Everybody was saying maybe stop the fight. And Brandon, you were just into it. You were saying don't stop it.
Don't stop it.
Right. It was just straight out madness going on with this particular bout. A fight like this, young guy like Figueroa is being built up here. What does it do to this guy? It has to kind of damage him in some ways. Sure, the crowd loved it. Probably gained a bunch of new fans based off of that, but that was pretty brutal, don't you think?
Absolutely. A fight like that can shave years off of a person's life and their career. He took a lot of punches. If, Arakawa was a heavier puncher, that could have ended very badly for him. But luckily, he wasn't as heavy-handed, and he was able to take those shots. But still, whether it's 5 punches from a power puncher or 15 from a light puncher, they're still going to have it being the same. He took a lot of unnecessary punishment in that fight. He got cut and nicked all up. Hopefully, he can grow and learn his defensive flaws going forward in his career. But he's definitely never going to be the same fighter.
Yeah, no, it's just kind of scary because the guy's pretty young. He's obviously very, very talented. Huge heart, and he's just got that character that makes people actually like the guy. He's just very respectful. Don't like to see a person get in too many of those kinds of wars. I mean, it's the kind, like you said, it's going to end their career pretty early. But fans got a treat. 2 fights in a row there on that same card there, and even leading up into the main event. Steve, Berto Karass. We had a bout here, crossroads bout for Berto. And he was, in a position where he's already been on the hard end of some losses here. Very questionable. A lot of smack talk in the media realm about him being hyped up too much and just having the promotional pool and managerial pool behind him, getting them big paydays that maybe he didn't deserve, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And all of a sudden, you had a straightforward guy like Karass, who's just rugged, just a rugged Mexican traditional fighter there that wouldn't stop coming. Eventually caught the guy, was beating him up a little bit. They were both going back and forth too for a while there. What's your thoughts on this fight and how it ended? I know we talked about it a little bit there, and we said, hey, Karass could pull the trigger. He can actually make it happen and pull a Guerrero here. Was Berto just already, worn and too beat out to even face a threat to Karass at this point?
Well, I didn't see, going into this fight, I didn't see Soto Karass posing much of a threat to Berto. Like I said, this was a fighter that was supposed to play into Berto's hands, a come-forward fighter. Berto boxed smartly. He could have outboxed him, and it could have been an easy night. It wasn't the case. I was wrong. Berto just looked flat. He looked shot. Anything that he landed had no pop on it. This was such a one-sided fight for Soto Karass. Soto Karass came out in the first couple rounds and boxed smartly, stayed on the outside and was landing shots. But obviously he closed the distance because that's the type of fighter that he is. And he landed many, many hard shots that, that rocked Berto. I agree with Paulie Malignaggi. That fight should have been stopped after 4 because Berto just had nothing in the tank. He can blame that. He can blame his shoulder or his bicep all that he wants. Even before he took that fall, which obviously did have an effect on the rest of the fight, he was taking a lot of unnecessary hard shots. So he can't really blame that on on the loss. Yes, he is a warrior. Yes, he gave it his all. He fought hard to the end, but he took way too many shots, more than he should have against a fighter of Soto Karass's quality. Berto, I hate to say it, I believe his career is over. I believe he is shot. He's been on the bad end of some bad losses. The loss to Ortiz, the brutal beating he took from Guerrero, and another beating he took last night. So I think he really should start thinking about his health because he's taking way too many shots, and we just don't want to see him get hurt. I think it's time for him to throw in the towel because what is he going to be now? He's going to be a journeyman who's a name for up-and-coming fighters. He's going to be a stepping stone. He's too good for that. It's time for him to, quit while he's ahead.
Yeah, I think Karass was supposed to be the gatekeeper here for him, and it kind of turned out to look the other way around here. He just put a beat down on the guy, so I feel the same way about him. I think that, maybe he needs to hang him up from here. Brandon, do you think that's going to be the case here, or do you think that he's still going to be some sort of a sacrificial lamb for some other people, and they're going to still use Berto to bring along other people here and see if they can use him?
Well, if he's still going to be under the all-powerful Al Heyman, he'll get another semi-large payday to fight somewhere against somebody. That's just, unfortunately, the nature of the sport. A fight that kind of sort of makes sense, but I'm not sure if it'll ever happen, is, finally him and Victor Ortiz having their rematch because, let's face it, neither one really has much options. Victor Ortiz rather dance with the stars and do movies than box anymore, and if he ever wants to get back in the boxing game, that's going to be a fight that's still going to be open, still be there, and it would still have some fan interest. As far as, really wider options for Berto, there's not going to be much of anything. I mean, he's going to be maybe a third-tier fight on a Golden Boy undercard, but still, who's going to pay all that money to have a guy, be the third fight on your undercard? That's just something that just doesn't make sense. So either he's going to have to take big pay cuts, or something of that nature to really keep himself in the game. Health-wise, I mean, if his shoulders, if he's having shoulder injuries, it just may physically not be able to do it anymore if those arms can't hold up.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. It's kind of a catch-22 on there. You know, he's kind of damned if he does, damned if he doesn't type of deal. Good win for Karass, and maybe open up some good opportunities for the guy. You know, he happened to drop a couple names afterwards as well. You know, Steve, what legitimately makes sense for Karass going forward?
Well, you know, I really can't say that he's going to get a big money fight off of this fight. Yes, he did pull off the upset, pulled a surprise that many of us didn't see coming. But really, you know, Soto Karass is a tough fighter, but over the past year or so, he's been the sacrificial lamb for a lot of fighters, and I feel that it's still going to be the same way. He probably could get himself in line for, you know, a big money match. You know, maybe possibly, you know, for a title belt, with the politics of boxing, anything can happen. Maybe, you know, who knows what can happen. Maybe with Adrian Broner, with his management handpicking opponents, they'll make him look good. This is a fighter that would, a match with Adrian Broner probably would make sense right now based on, Broner's marketing, and he wants a name. And, of course, Soto Karass is a tough fighter who's coming off a big win. So I wouldn't doubt it that those two step in the ring with each other next.
Wouldn't either. Right along that time when things were going down with this particular bout, we had another well-known fighter from the other airways from HBO. And like Brandon, as you said, Showtime just kind of dropped the giant bomb here and kind of upped the ante for other promoters to step up and put together some good cards here. And, Andre Ward was jumping on and kind of went on a rampage yesterday there. A lot of people were wondering what's going on with this guy, what was rubbing him the wrong way. What did you catch from that?
And I did send a tweet out. I got a response from a couple of friends of mine who are MMA fighters and boxers and said, sometimes when a fighter sees their friend fighting, they get a little sensitive about it. And I was like, there's nothing wrong with that, but there's really no point of getting, extra sensitive and defensive about it. Here as of late, Andre Ward has just seemed to kind of morph into a different person. He's letting his ego kind of get the best of him. I've noticed that in some of the commentating he's been doing here on HBO, some of the tweets he sends out and statements he makes. So I don't know if he's feeling himself a little bit too much, but by the sounds of it, he may not have a home too much longer at HBO because the fights that he's trying to get booked, they don't want to pay for. And quite honestly, I don't know any clamoring of fans who want to go see an Andre Ward fight.
Right.
So I really don't know what's up with him. I think he really needs to kind of take a couple steps back and kind of refocus and rethink about things, because right now what he's doing, the things that he's saying, is just not a good look. It makes him come off as looking real salty and real sour about situations.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. I think it threw a lot of people off to see him reacting that way towards it, which you can understand if his buddy's fighting and whatnot, that would kind of throw him the wrong way. But still, it is what it is. That's how fans and observers are going to be like there. You can't let everything get to you that way. Moving on to a card that is going to be touching HBO's airwaves. Brandon, I know we've touched base a little bit on this, and the team over at Elite Boxing is finally getting a pretty nice fight here lined up for Delvin Rodriguez, who's going to be stepping up against Miguel Cotto, who's changed networks, who's changed trainers all the way around. And I want to open up the floor to this one here, just to be totally honest on this particular matchup here. Brandon, what's your take with Cotto's recent move over to HBO and with trainer Freddie Roach?
It'll be interesting. It'll be really interesting to see what Freddie Roach can pull out of Cotto and what he can maybe help him retool and redo. I know Roach has made statements that he wants to try to bring that body punching, that vicious body punching back into Cotto's game, which would be extremely, extremely good to see him do that again. That's what really brought him to fame and made him such a scary fighter early in his career. As far as the move to HBO and going back to Top Rank, it's kind of a one-off deal. So if things go well, he could stay. If things go well, he could go to Showtime and maybe find a fight, do a co-promotion with Golden Boy. So it's kind of a one-off deal with an option for more if both parties agree upon to it. So it'll be kind of interesting to see how everything plays out. The matchup itself with Rodriguez is I'm kind of indifferent about. Rodriguez, I'm glad he finally gets a big payday, but it just seems that Cotto may be just a step above class-wise and could give him a lot of trouble. The only thing that I really see Rodriguez having the advantage on is his height, and I know his management team has said themselves right now they're having a little bit of a tough time, but they're trying to find sparring partners who are around Cotto's height to kind of mimic and help them out during training camp.
Yep. No, it's an interesting matchup there, and it could play out a couple of different ways. Steve, what's your honest opinion on this matchup as well? I mean, do you think Roach has the ability? He's kind of been on the downward spiral as well, so he's kind of looking to get back in the winner's circle as well. Does he have what it takes to turn the clock back with Cotto and kind of turn him back to that vicious body puncher that he used to be? Or do you think he's kind of reached towards the end of his career here, and Delvin, with all due respect to him as well, last two outings, great. He's shined a little bit on TV there with his last two bouts, but not even close are the opponents to Miguel Cotto or what Miguel Cotto used to be. What's your take on this?
It's very interesting to see what's going to happen here. It's all how Cotto, how well he listens to Freddie Roach during training, because Roach is going to incorporate some new things into his game plan, bring back some old things such as the body punching. He just got to be receptive to Freddie Roach. He's got to be willing to learn new things, maybe and he just got to be receptive. And inside that ring, he's got to control the pace of this fight. It's another crossroads fight, which anything can happen. We thought that Soto Karass was going to be an easy fight for Andre Berto, and look what happened. This is the same thing, too. This is supposed to be a fight in which Cotto's supposed to get back on track, but, theater of the unexpected. That's why they fight the fight. We don't know what's going to happen inside that ring. Delvin does have the tools, to give Cotto a lot of problems and to pull off the upset. But, however, I think that, like Brandon said, Cotto's probably just a step ahead of him, and I think that he's going to pull out the victory.
Good stuff. Well, as we get closer and closer to fight time there, I'm going to be, chiming in myself to really pay attention to how these guys are coming along with their training camps and see, kind of if anybody's opinion does change on this one. But like in boxing, anything can happen. I'm looking forward to this one. Thanks for everybody for tuning in. Again, Brandon Stubbs, Gordie Tamayo, Steve Gallegos for TheTitleFight.com. Have a good one.